So let's add some recoil to our shooting. So right now we're basically just shaking and not doing much else on our weapons. So let's add some shooting. So well, I'm pretty sure you know what I mean. So on my FPS part, you'll see that we have, well, the FPS part means all the objects that are going to be enabled when you are local, and then we're going to later add the TPS part, so which are going to be enabled once you are once you are a client. So the rig we are using right now, it's kind of basic. We're going to expand this a little bit. So we have our controller, our general object that holds everything. We have our tilter, which moves up and down, and then we have shaker, main camera, and our weapons, and so on and so on. Now, here's what we usually do, and here's the easy way to actually do this, because whenever you shoot on any other, AAA FPS, you are shooting, your recoil moves your weapon up, and once you leave your shooting button, it will return back to where you were. Try this on any modern FPS you want, and it will work like that. So how do we do this? How do we fake that simple, not just shake, but actual recoil that it will return back to the position we were? So the question is actually really simple to answer. First of all, I'm going to call this recoil or camera recoil, or actually camera parent, I guess. Now, camera parent will actually hold the shaker as well, because it shakes the camera. We might split the weapon from the camera, but all you see that all of these are actually on the same position in space, and that's kind of on purpose. Okay, the tilter, remember, moves up and down, so that means it's going to be, it's going to basically be our aim position. So no matter where I move this, if I return this back to the tilter, it will be similar to where the player was aiming at the first place. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a recoil manager over here, or recoil parent, I guess, and from that I'm also going to make a recoil target. Now, recoil parent should always be at the same position as our camera parent. I'm not going to move it so it will always be there, but I'm going to move a little bit forward my recoil target. It doesn't really, well, it does mean some things once you move it. So don't move it, if you make it go far in the distance, then it will actually change the amount of recoil you're going to be getting. So just keep it kind of close so you can make bigger edits, and then you can control how much your recoil works with animations. So here's another thing that I'm going to do, is I'm going to actually create an animator into this, which, let's call it art, let's call this FPS animations. Well, it's the ones we are going to make, and FPS animations, let's call this recoil 1. You can create as many as you want for this, but for this one it should be fine. First of all, okay, let's make another one as well, which is going to be the idle. And for idle, all I want is to basically just keep it at Y. Okay, the Z value, as I said, it's not that important. What's more important is the X and Y value. Okay, now this is now in idle. Okay, we have that. So we have a recoil 1. We kind of want to see the path it's going to be traveling, so we're going to add a trailer renderer, and let's make it small, so that means whenever I move it I get a nice line behind it. So I'm just going to set that to 1, and let's reset this to back to idle. Let's see what it was. Okay, that's at 0. Okay, let's set this at 0 as well. So technically the length of your recoil is depending on a few things, but let's assume with 1 you're going to have the entire recoil animation. So what I want to do is I'm going to say go here. Okay, then you will see that this will be a straight line. Of course we don't want just a straight line, so I'm going to break this a little bit. So technically to actually get the correct recoil, you have to be calculating the fire rate of the weapon. Let's give this one more. Doesn't matter if it's like this. Some games actually have extended recoil like that, because I can always control it with the scale, and that's actually going to be a factor into each weapon we have. Okay, so this will be our recoil curve. Okay, let's close that in. Now on my both of these animations I'm actually going to return to make them not loop, and then on my recoil parent let's open up our animator. Let's set the default layer to idle, and then I'm going to change this to is shooting, and let's make the transitions. So is shooting, if it's false, if it's false for this, it will return back to idle, and if it's true, then it's going to transition to recoil 1. Okay, so we can also of course add different integers and have different recoils depending on the weapon and stuff like that, but we can just see it later. We just want this to be working, to see it working. So on my FPS handler I'm going to assign a reference for the animator, which is going to be of course our recoil animator. Then on our recoil animator, once we are handling our shooting, if we can shoot, we need to know that we're shooting, so we're going to have a reference. I think we can just do it on the controller to have a reference over there, so we can actually open up different let's have a reference for the states we're using. Let's say these are stats. Let's add here the stats, and this will be states. Then let's add public bool is shooting, is grounded, and also on can also be a reference to this, but for now let's just use this. And let's see. Okay, so if you can shoot, controller.is shooting equals true, and if you cannot shoot, then we should be basically saying is false. Okay, because we are having this inside the get mouse button, then this should probably be go in here, handle shooting in here. So c.is shooting equals false, and that. Then after we have this, we can have a call to update all our animators. So for now I think I'm just going to say recoil animator set bool is shooting, and set that 2, 3 is shooting. Okay, let's see it at work. Now, thing is, we're not going to be seeing much, but the trailer renderer now. And of course we have to assign it as well. Recoil parent, recoil animator. Okay. So you see the recoil, how it works. Now, the problem, well, one problem is that it's almost it's almost instant, because of course when our shooting is not happening, so even on the fire rate we are doing, and there is a slight delay even with a high fire rate. So we should have a check for if you're shooting there is an actual delay. So float shooting delay, and let's do that. Then if shooting delay over 0, then shooting delay equals or minus delta, but C is shooting, then it's going to be true. Okay, then in here we're going to be setting up, once you shoot, shooting delay, let's say we can use the fire rate of the actual weapon, I think, and it will make it move the entire length of the animation, or at least, okay. And if I leave it now, you can see that the recoil changes. Okay, so let's make our camera then follow this. So really simple, really easy way to do this will basically to be public transform recoil target, and then we just make our camera always follow that recoil target. Let me check one thing. Okay, so do we do this then on tick, because we're always ticking for this, we're going to have our, well, we need a reference to the actual camera transform. So camera transform, we have the camera shake, which is different. Camera transform means this object, the camera parent. So let's maybe name it like that, so we're not confused. Camera parent. Okay, and then I'm actually going to use recoil parent as well. You'll see why. So on my camera parent, I'm going to make a look at on my camera on my recoil target, and word up will actually be recoil parent dot up. Let's assign all the variables. Okay, camera parent is this, recoil parent is this, and recoil target is this. So now we should have a proper recoil. Oops. Okay, you see that it does move, but it's kind of basic right now. Another thing that we are also missing is that our bullets keep staying here instead of following our cube. That's kind of funny, this happens, but we'll see why. So, and let's see. So that works, but it's very slow. So how do we fix that? We'll go, say, speed 5, something like that. Okay, 5 is way too fast. Let's do 3, and of course you can always edit the animation. Let's fix the bullets because it will give us a better understanding of this. So we are using our camera transform, which is on the controller actually. So the camera transform is based on the tilter. So I'm simply going to change this to the camera parent instead. Okay, so Recoil 1, let's assign this to 1 actually. It's not that bad. Okay, that's not bad. If we had, since we have unlimited bullets, it basically means he can go on to great lengths. So let's say I want to manage this. First of all, I'm just simply going to make this to be at half speed and half size of, even, let's do like 1.5 on scale of the Recoil parent. Okay, so now it means I have a smaller, an even smaller yeah, well, basically have an even smaller recoil pattern. And if we make this smaller now, the crossfade duration is actually going to be snappier going into the recoil, which is as it should be. And then we can tailor this into the proper distance as well. So you will have some nice shooting. Okay, so that's it. So yeah, that's that for the recoil. It's actually might seem really simple, but if you just be changing per weapon the scale like this, and if we add, we have shake object, let's add another shake for the x-axis to this, and maybe like 0.1. Okay, you have all the recoil you'll ever need, and you can have as many animations, as many recoil animations you want. So let's see how we're on time. Yeah, I think it's good enough to end the video here. And okay, we have some issues. The issue we have is we cannot actually rotate up and down. Let's see if that's, yeah, okay. That's because our recoil parent okay, so the camera parent should stay at the tilter, so we can actually rotate up and down, and the camera parent should be casting the bullet. So let's open up our script, then let's add, actually we do have the camera parent already, so we'll just use camera parent and camera parent. And here we are. We have our recoil. I think it's a little slow, but it also has to do with the weapon we're using. But if when we add VFX, then this should be fine. Let's close the recoil target, and let me check one thing. Yeah, and we have forgotten to actually clamp. Yeah, okay, that's funny. We have forgotten to actually clamp our rotation. Okay, and of course, because I have my recoil, I can actually try and eliminate the recoil if you try to, you know, that Counter-Strike stuff they're doing. Yeah, so let's also clamp our rotation, and then we're going to yeah, to end the video. Let me think. I think I have this somewhere. And hold on. So our solution is going to come from here. Okay, if you Google how to do clamp a container, you eventually find this, but it's basically this little method. Go and paste it. Let's paste it in our FPS handler, although I think we're going to be using, I don't know, let's just paste it in our FPS handler and we'll see if we need it elsewhere. So let's remove the static, we don't really need it, and we pass quaternion and the bounds. So in this case, actually we have this in the controller, not onto our FPS handler. Yeah, on the controller we have the handler rotation over here. So after we pass our transform.rotation, if you want, just pause the video and copy paste this, and then quaternion rotation transform, actually camera transform dot rotation. Okay, let's make it clamp rotation, target transform rotation, and let's also assign public vector 3 camera bounds. Let's do something like for 45 0 and 0. Okay, camera bounds, and that will be enough. And of course we also need to assign this back to our rotation, and then let's rename this to clamp, or well, we don't need to rename this, we can just add it directly. Okay, and now you can see we are clamped, and if I wanted to go even further down, you can just change this to 60. Okay, now one thing that actually we can do now is actually rotate left and right. So let's see, I think we're missing, yeah, the clamp kind of ruined it because it's on the command. We don't want the rotation, we actually want the local rotation and local rotation to be affected, not the world rotation. Okay, so here we go. We now have an actual, yeah, we're having a working FPS controller right now. Perfect. So let's end the video here, and then when we're back, we're going to start adding more features and more features. So I'll see you on the next one.